Logan Taylor is a psychic medium with a decade of experience, and he's also a star on Hulu's Living for the Dead. As a child, he would interact and communicate with ghosts and spirits without even realizing it. In 2018, Logan began his professional journey as a psychic medium, and he's read thousands of people from all over the world. His mission is to help clients understand that no matter how different you may feel, you have a divine destiny and angels guiding you from heaven. We're speaking with Logan today on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Logan, thanks for joining the podcast today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm so excited to chat with you. I've been enjoying Living for the Dead, but let's first start with, where are you based and what is the gist of your work?
I am based out of a small town called McMinnville, Tennessee. And the gist of what I work is what don't I do a lot, but it all pretty much revolves in paranormal. I am a psychic full time, and I read year round, and I travel the country doing group readings. I also am a ghost hunter, and I film. I have recently, well, not recently, for the past, how I even got into ghost hunting in the first place, started filming my friends ghost hunt. They were all psychics. And then that kind of got me into it. And now recently, I've partnered with a group of women. One of them, going to give her a little shout out, is Kelly Farrow. She's very popular on the internet. But I brought them together and I sort of created a little web series. It's not little, it's pretty big. But where they do different investigations and they're very psychic. And the first episode, well, it will already be out when this comes out. But their thing is called Whispers in Spirit TV, and it's on YouTube. And so that's where my focus is. It's really funny because being on camera was something that I guess I wanted when I was young and I kind of had just let go of. I was very comfortable. I like the world of unscripted. I like sort of producing things, and I was very cool with that. And then this TV show happened, and it was like, and then all these opportunities started happening. So it's very, I do a little bit of everything, but it all circles back to paranormal.
Renaissance Man in the Paranormal. And I did see that you launched that web series, so congrats on that. It looks like
Thank
a really
you.
fun project. And how did your journey start? How did you discover that you are a psychic medium?
Well, it's something that I've always, even when I wasn't supposed to feel those things or talk about it, it was something that I felt. And I remember struggling with it as a little kid, always sort of being drawn to it. I grew up in a very, Southern religious household. So it was like, no, 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 bad, bad, of the devil, whatever. And so I, hold on, let me get my train of thought here. Okay. Sorry, it's so much that's happened since then. I was little and I was struggling with it. And my aunt, I was at her house one day and she's like, there's like all this history. And then I had to pry it out of my grandmother. She told me about my great great grandmother, and it was just this whole lineage of family, whatever. So I had guides throughout my childhood who sort of trained me and eluded me. I don't think they really understood, like as a little boy, imaginary friends were not really, it was more than it was just so much more than that. And so I repressed that in middle school and elementary school, and I knew going into high school I was dealing with so much other stuff, but it was anxiety and it was depression, and it was rooted in a spiritual connection that I was sort of brushing aside. And so when I got out of high school, I felt sort of liberated, and I'm like, oh my God, you know how high school is. But and then I found a mentor who's actually on Whispers from Spirit, the show I created, and that was when I was 18, and she's been with me. I'm 28 now, so 10 years. She's sort of guided and molded. And I remember as an 18-year-old, she really told me I could do it. And I started reading professionally at 19 or 18, one of the two.
That's amazing. And And I'm curious to hear because obviously, you're an openly queer person, and if you feel comfortable sharing, how do you feel, if so, that your journey stepping into the fullness of your queer identity, or coming out, that how that intersected or paralleled your journey as a psychic medium? Did it? Is there a relationship between the two for you?
That's a good question. Yes,
It's a deep
yeah,
one, I know.
yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. I joke that I came out twice. Like I got to come out in both regards, and still, I think everybody pretty much knows everything at this point. But for a long time, I was sort of, um, you know, again, hiding. I was hiding both. It was like I was going to be judged for either. My family almost had a harder time with the psychic thing, than being gay. But I've learned that the real secret to life, or just getting what you want, or in general, is you have to just live fully in yourself. It's very scary, and sometimes it is not, like, it's not easy, and you're kind of upgrading yourself every day. But if you can just settle into who you really are, nothing can stop you, and you can do anything. So I had to learn that the hard way. But once I learned that, it's like everything's sort of open for me spiritually, career wise, etc.
That's the shadow work. I am in the midst of
Okay.
that. Yes,
Okay. Yeah, and it takes
absolutely.
time. It
Mm-hmm.
takes time. But
Yeah.
I will share this with you. For so long, I wanted sort of a platform that was to this caliber. And it wasn't until I found myself fully that it happened. And that's the truth. That sounds very cliche, but it's the truth. So I feel like the secret is just being yourself fully. And for me, it's being a gay guy who talks to dead people for a living. I don't know. It's just,
I say all the time on this podcast, we're double whammy to the church. We're psychic and we're gay. So
oh, like
big 180 from my
double
life.
double homicide. Like,
Yep.
yes.
Exactly, exactly. So how do you what does channeling feel like for you? How do you feel, or how do you sense what comes through from the other side?
Um, that's a good question too. Over the years, it's changed, and I've like sort of, I don't know, gone through stuff that's sort of shifted my. When I was young, like I said, it was I could see them like I could see people. Even on into high school, it was like that. And right after high school, when I started reading professionally. But over the years, it's been 10 years since I started doing this. Over the years, life has sort of shifted and molded my mindset. So to me, I see them, I feel them, and it's almost more like a shadow sometimes. But it's a sight. Now sometimes they'll come to me in full body apparitions like they did when I was young. But it's oh, I get chills thinking about it, because it's always a feeling, or like on a side of my, like, this is my female, this is my male side. So it's body recognition, a lot of that. Um, Now, and I've loved the way my gifts have sort of changed and molded. I think a lot of people panic as intuitive people or psychics in general when their gifts change, or they can no longer, it sort of shifts, and that's just part of life, and it happens for a reason.
I have always wished that I could see them in full body. And I think for the last 31 years of my life, that spirit's like, we're going to scare the shit out of you if we do that. So you're not ready for it yet. Now I'm starting to slowly see them, but it doesn't shock me or scare me. So maybe I'm ready now. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting how the way we perceive things shift. And there's conditioning as a child. There's so many layers to that too, right? Um, and so what has been, I'm curious to hear in a client reading, and share what you can and don't share what you cannot share, because I want to respect confidentiality. But has there been a favorite moment in a client reading that just like sticks out to you? I'm sure you have many, but one that like just like has impacted you.
Um, oh my God. So many, but a story I tell that, oh my God. Client reading, really something good. Okay, I'll share one. Um, hmm, I don't know if I can share this one actually. Yes, I will. I'm going to anyways. So I was auditioning for something. I won't say what, but I had to do a reading. And one of the very important people who I had to read, it was a very, um, he was sort of a skeptical person. And his dad came through in a way for him that was unbelievably validating and just moving. And he just broke, this very strong man just sort of broke down in tears. And it's a lot of people that come to me are new or have never done it or have never experienced it. And I guess it's just because I trust that whoever I read is who I'm supposed to read. There were so many years where you feel like I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anybody. So when I read, it's very much in that mindset. I'm not feeling like I have to convince you of anything. I'm just telling you what I'm feeling, type deal. And one that I'll share that I can share more details about. This father came to me years ago when I first started reading, and somebody had actually got him the reading as a gift. And he was like, I don't believe in this. That was the first thing he said. He was like a military man. He drove for like 4 hours. I was like, he must be serious about it. But he, I started channeling his wife and daughter. And I said, did you lose them unfortunately? And he got really emotional, sort of, because it was, and I talked about an accident that had happened, a car accident. And he was pretty, sad. And this is a big old strong man, okay? And then I said, I see the little girl, and I said, she's twirling around in a Cinderella dress. And he just started wailing, let out like a wail, like a little boy, and they buried her in a Cinderella dress. And so it's just little moments. Oh, I get chills again when I said that. It's just little moments like that. And that's just one of a bazillion. I joke all the time that I've been trying to get out of this business since I got into it. And it's because it's hard, but there's no way you could. It's so rewarding. The clients always find you. The messages always come through. And it's just something that I guess I was destined to do.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And I mean, even watching Living for the Dead, there are some moments you give readings, which seem like they kind of happen on the spot. It just happens to you, and you're reading somebody like a staff member at wherever you're investigating. Like there was the one episode, I'm gonna get the name wrong. Is it Gentleman's Club? Is it Palomino?
The Palomino, you got it. Yep.
Palomino. Okay, you
Yep.
read one or two of the dancers, and that I still remember that reading and just how it seemed to affect her. So yeah, it's fun that we can also watch like how you read on the show too. And so, see that segue? So tell us about Living for the Dead. Like, how did it come about for you? And let's start with that. Like, how did it come about for you?
I love that. You're what a host. I swear to God.
I'm so slick. I'm slick.
Yeah, yeah, you are. I love it. So well, it's funny. I'll tell you this story. I've never shared this story on any sort of public platform, I guess. But I was at a point in life where I was laying in bed and I was just at sort of a bad spot comparing myself and I just remember laying there thinking, God, I need something. I don't know what it is. I need some sort of miracle. Like I was needing a miracle and I was crying as I fell asleep, The very next day, I swear on everything I love, the very next day, my friend messages me and goes, look at this audition I just sent you. I think you would be perfect for it. And Kristen and Scout put out the audition, and it was like casting queer ghost hunters or something like that. And so I remember I filled out the form, and right after I filled it out, I looked over at my best friend and I said, "It's in the bag." I just knew, because not to toot my own horn, but I wasn't kidding when I said I've been trying to get out of this business. I'm a little good at it, so I knew it was going to be an easy breezy thing. And but it was not easy breezy. Let me clarify at all. But it was, I felt confident. And so 6 months later, I got a call or an email, and they flew us to LA, and we did sort of chemistry test type deal, and then got the final word that we had got, and got to meet Kristen, and of course, and everything in LA, and then got the final word that we were doing the show, and we filmed it in the beginning of the year, several months at the beginning of this year, and it. I honestly thought it would be a lot easier than it was. I don't know. I don't know. I was expecting it. I mean, we got wardrobe. I mean, there were a lot of elements that was like, okay, I'm a small town boy from Tennessee. This is wild. But it was hard. It was not easy. These places were scary. And that is no cap. These places were a lot of history, a lot of memories, and we get to sleep in them. That was not fake. That was so real.
I mean, wasn't the first episode the Clown Motel? I think that's the first episode.
Yes.
That was quite the episode to start with, because that I would have said, you know what, I'm canceling my contract with him. But freaky, totally freaky.
It was. And to be honest, we didn't know what to expect, really. I mean, they prepped us. We had meeting after meeting on Zoom, but when we Tonopah, Nevada, it's not a big place. It's a tiny, tiny town 3 hours north of Las Vegas. And so it kind of getting in this mindset, and then everybody, it's funny because when we would go to all these little towns, people would start hearing about it, or I guess they'd know that we were filming it, because it was kind of a big operation. They would shut down streets and everything else. But the crew would have to stay with us in some of these places. Now the Clown Motel, that was what I was getting at. The Clown Motel, the crew got to stay down the street, and we had to stay in the Clown Motel
With your cameras, your handheld cameras,
with
document
the ones above the the door frames watching you. So it was like that was real stuff, and it was not for the faint of heart. Knock on wood, I hope to never go back to the Clown Motel. Season 2 will be there, I'm sure. But no!
Do not manifest it. Whatever the opposite.
I know. There's so much
I
more
don't
to
know.
see. There's so much more to see, universe.
Yeah. Now, what has been your favorite experience filming Living for the Dead?
Okay, favorite experience. It was the experience as a whole was, of course, challenging, but it was amazing. A real something that you'll never get anywhere else. And I'll tell you, the best thing that I walked away with was it was a confidence. And that's the thing. It was fun. Like, as far as experience goes, story wise, I think about, an episode, I think it's 3, The Big Mansion. We really got to stay in that one too. And we were kind of just partying, having a good time. It was like,
that was just
fun, riding the little elevator up and down. We really got to just, and getting to know the crew was so amazing, and making the connections with my castmates who are genuinely also skilled and wonderful and gifted. And, I a lot of time in the van, a lot of time in traveling, but it was worth it because we would get to impact people. And that was the thing. It wasn't just playing dress up or gay people screaming through the shadows. It was really helping people, and that means something. And I have to remember that a lot of time as a medium. To me, a reading, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but I do them all the time. So I have to remember from the client's perspective how they've been waiting for this for so long. They're so excited. That's how I approach every reading, everything I do, with the same intention that the person on the other end is really, it's impacting them.
It's interesting you say that, because recently I spoke to my mentor. I told her that I was getting nervous. I was getting to the point that this mediumship stuff, it's feeling like same old, and I don't like the fact that it's feeling that way. And she told me that's normal. You've been doing it for several years, and but what you just said is such an important reminder. Like, some psychic mediums, not naming names, just kind of sit in the ego of what they're doing, and they don't really think about how the client sometimes they come desperate, feeling desperate, or they come. I mean, even that man you said that was skeptical but ended up getting very emotional is like something made him want to drive 4 hours to see you. Some trickle of hope. And
Right.
even if it's a trickle or it's like a flood of hope and desperation, whatever it is,
Right.
that client is sitting in this space of a lot of vulnerability and they feel kind of on the spot too. So you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and it's also I want to add, it's important as a spiritual person or as a you take time for yourself. It's important that you I had to take a couple years off and during that like it's a lot. It's a lot and managing your own life and everything, discovering who you are on top of trying to help everybody else. It's a lot. But everything happens for and that goes back to what we were saying earlier like I trust that every session is meant to happen. And I make sure when I ask, I don't let any bogus crap happen because I always really make sure and know that everybody who I interact with is meant to help and is meant to impact in a positive way.
That's just awesome to hear. And we need more of that. And one quick question. You said you started 10 years ago when you were 18. So that's what, 2012, 2013. Psychic, the field of psychic ability, new age, whatever you want to call it, new age. I feel like 2020, and I do believe traumatic societal events like the Civil War, I
Yeah.
think COVID triggers this curiosity in people and maybe awakens,
Totally.
that's what I had my awakening as a psychic medium was 2020, very recently.
Totally. A
Um,
lot of people did too. That's true.
yeah, and I think I mean, I don't want to celebrate the fact that it took that trauma. Like, it's not the trauma to celebrate, really, but it's also like, I guess that had to happen for people, whatever their journey is, it happened. Um, so I want to ask you, since you've been in the game for 10 years, I'm sure you've noticed just like social media, how people talk about psychic abilities, who is putting themselves out there. And we're not going to, be judgy on this podcast, but like, what's your take on this interest in the last 3 years, like this booming interest compared to like what it was when you first started at
Oh,
18, which is very young?
I
Yeah.
know what you're. Yeah, I was talking to a friend about this the other day who's been in it for like 30 years, literally. Amazing. It's very okay, and this is not shady. I want everybody to again be their authentic selves. I think a lot of people there psychics are glamorized now. Let's just call it what it is. Psychics are, ghost talk or witch talk or whatever. Being psychic and all that. It's glamorized, which is not. Hey, I'm glad it is. It's good for business. It's good for me. But it and sometimes people really want and not saying everybody's intuitive, everybody has intuition, but it's important that when people do this work or claim to have these gifts that you know what you're getting into and you know what you're doing. It's not just what else is at an all-time high? Those scam Instagram pages that are like ripping off Juju, my castmate. I cannot even tell you the amount of people who have been ripped off by fake pages of her, and it's just like that is doing karma is not going to play with those people. It's like I just think this is real energy work. Really affects things, and it shouldn't be just sort of joked around with or taken lightly. You know?
No, and you're right. It's like when someone, I mean, it's so easy for me to tell when someone is putting themselves out there and eh, there are a lot of like they're cookie cutter psychic medium accounts.
For
And I'm not saying
sure.
that the work they're doing isn't real. It's just like, yeah, I think being your most authentic self because it's just social media. There's so much of the same thing now in this field, I feel like. And you know what? I'm just like worrying about my own thing. I'm not going to focus on that. Like, if that works for you, if that works for them, that's cool. But I think there's a reason scammers are copying our accounts because it's happened to me too. People reach out to my friends pretending to be me and doesn't sound like me. They say these weird words that I don't understand. Um, so we're doing something right, but if they're trying to copycat us, these scammers. But yeah, it's just interesting to see this boom, especially with like TikTok during the pandemic, and there's a lot going on right now on
Yeah.
social. Yeah. Now, quick pivot. So I noticed that you are the director founder of a performing arts group, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
So I find that I've talked to quite a few psychic mediums who dabble in theater or acting. So are you an actor? Were you an actor? Like, yeah, what's the crossover? Is there a crossover
That is
between you and that?
hilarious. Yes, okay. This is a wild story because it's all been also come to a head recently, me acting. But anyways, um, so yes, as a little boy, I was in theater, and I even when I got out of high school, I realized that my community, because I moved like a town over, I realized that my community didn't have any theater whatsoever. And I started my own theater group. Again, I was 18, or I may have been 19, but I bought the rights for a show, got little sponsors, and I rented out the theater. And yes, it was a theater group, and I ended up seeing 500 kids through the program. It was a very successful. It was not. I joke. I don't joke. The shows were everybody who came that hadn't seen him was like, I was not expecting this because people underestimate a small town, whatever. But they were good. They were really good, and the kids and the connections I made were so important. And I got to use my intuition to sort of guide me in that way in my role of director. Even now, when I shoot my stuff with my psychic women, it's channeling. I'm literally it's all intuition based. But when I was doing my theater, that was a huge part of my life. It was like balancing the psychic and we wouldn't talk about it. I never mixed the two. It wasn't something that you were never going to catch me talking about my psychic stuff at rehearsal, just because I just know how, now that's something it's not that I've retired from theater by any means. I'm sure I'll direct again, but, right now I'm kind of on a hiatus from theater, and the only thing I don't miss is dealing with I live in a world now where I pretty much get to choose who I want to be around, who I want to deal with, and I want to keep it that way as long as I can.
Yeah, that's a major blessing. Like I mean, I don't have, I've never been on a TV show. I don't think I've been on a major theater stage. And I like my life that way. So yeah, I think that's very human. That's totally normal. So definitely cherish that.
Yes.
Before we end our episode, what's one myth? If there's one myth about psychic abilities that you could choose to debunk right now, what would it be?
Okay. One myth about and see. One myth I want to debunk, I guess, is just that it's really important to understand that psychics are people. I think a lot of TV, you're never going to see a psychic be wrong on TV. I'm just here to tell you right now. So, but the truth is, psychics are human. We don't get to cheat. We don't get to play this life anyway. Uh, so don't take my word for gospel. Don't take a psychic's word for everything, but also, um, you know, I don't know. There's just it's something that I also think if more people would be open to, it could really open their lives just outside of readings or connections. The spirituality that's kind of within us, and that's sort of been awakening over the last few years, whether it be for COVID or whatever. It is creating sort of an awakening, and I think people need to be open to it because if they're not, they'll be wishing they were later.
I interviewed your castmate Ken, and he had a very similar response. Like, psychics can be wrong, and even the most sincere, with the most integrity, like, we get things wrong because we're human. We're not God.
Yeah,
We're
we
psychic
are. But
humans.
you know what? I've learned that, like I said, the information that's supposed to come through will to the people that it's meant to. And so, um, yeah, and also just don't believe everything you see on Instagram because it may or may not be real.
Could be a scammer.
Yeah.
No, and I feel like, and this is old news to you, I'm sure, and to the two of us definitely. How many times are we doing a reading and someone says, like, 80% of the time, I don't know, I don't think so, I don't know, and then they email you like 2, 3 weeks later, like, oh my God, I spoke to my mom and that was my grandma.
Oh, all the time,
All the time.
all the time, all the time. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, don't be texting me at 3 in the morning with this news. You just, yeah, but and that's another thing. People sort of have to, they have to wrap their minds around it. In the moment, it's a lot. It can be a lot to people. So, just be open to it, even if it takes you a while to process it.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
That's right.
So where can listeners go to find out more about you?
They can find out more about me at intuitivelogan.com or at my Instagram, Intuitive Logan. Or I do have a Facebook too. It's facebook.com/Intuitive Logan, I think. You can just type my name, Logan Taylor. I don't know!
Google it, folks. Just Google
it!
Logan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was super fun to chat with you. It really was.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.